What is up, everybody? I'm Johnny Langford, aka the Savage Podcaster host that talks about all entrepreneurial things in life with my co-host, but not my Robin, Adam Rorta.
What is up? What is up? How's it going, Johnny?
Good. It's like I know where you live.
Oh, I know, right?
So, how's everybody doing? Today's topic, I'm going to let Adam introduce it, then I'm going to go into why we picked this topic. So,
All right. So today we're going to go ahead and talk about more or less a three-tiered approach to the entrepreneurial life, and the one way to actually persevere and get to success. For us, we found these three items that we go ahead and focus on. When we do focus on them, it really helps out. For myself personally, I have a few more items that I have on my own list, but today we're going to go over the three main points that really hit home, and that is, I call it the half. Instead of half-assing it, where we are bringing to the table our hope, our acknowledgement, and our focus. So hope, acknowledgement, and focus. Instead of half-assing it, we half it.
point exactly. All right, so what got me into these three topics was a little different. I reached out and I tried to talk to a lot of entrepreneur groups, and I talked to a lot of people that wanted to, I asked for concerns and abilities for different things and some topics we should reach out on. And someone talked to me about how, through all the thick and thin, how do you stay motivated? And the first thing I do is I find my calm space. I find where something that keeps me grounded, that keeps my feet towards gravity, that keeps me centered. And then I bounce back from learning from my failures. I think in this entrepreneur game, a lot of people are like, well, I don't ever fail, and I don't fail, and I don't want to ever fail. But you have to fail. This is a failure-driven society. When you fall, you learn from your failure, and you let failure be your teacher. You let her be your mistress.
If you're not failing, you are not succeeding.
Well, I mean, Will Smith said it best, and I'm going to say it like this. He came out with a video on YouTube that said, fail and fail often and do it as much as you can. And don't try to fail. I'm not saying go out there and plant your face on the ground and said, oh, I scratched my nose. Oh, my goodness. Learn how not to skip rocks or whatever. Like, no. When you fail and you learn from your mistakes, don't go back and do the same thing. A person that is crazy does the same thing over and over again, hoping he gets a different result, right? So you move past that. And then my third step is to focus on your goal. Focus on that thing that keeps you up at night, that you are driven to do every day, and sacrifice as much as you can to get to that goal. Don't let anything sidetrack you. Don't get distracted. Move straight and forward to it. I've had a lot of things in this last few weeks that have driven me down, but at the same time, I'm still posting content. I'm still looking for new clients. I'm still driving to build websites. I'm still driving to build social media platforms and do what I can. That is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is be an entrepreneur. I don't work well with others, as in I may have a better idea, and I feel that as a controversy in marketing, people want to go knock door on door, and they want to put billboards up and newspaper articles way in the back. We can get into that topic another day, but I feel that marketing on the internet is a lot easier, and therefore it's not taking people's time, and we need to adventure time out there. So I want to bring a new side to marketing, and a lot of people are just looking at me like I'm retarded, but knocking on someone's door where I'm from gets you shot. So with that being, and arming yourself with that amount of information, moving towards my goals is not going to ever change. It's something I always want to do. And a lot of people get into this lifestyle thinking it's going to be, oh, I'm going to be able to have some free time and be able to hang out with my wife, hang out with my kids. I'm going to be able not to worry financially about anything. if you think you're getting into entrepreneurship about that, that's not till like 30, 40, 50 years down the road. Even at that, people get addicted to this and don't stop.
Well, I hope you're making money after 10 years in, or at least starting to at that point. But yeah, the whole point here is, you've got to have that hope. Don't lose hope at any point. And let's start from the beginning with this three-tiered approach. So first thing is you've got to maintain hope. You've got to maintain that positive mindset. It can be very difficult at times. And with that being said, my advice is something John and I actually both do quite a bit of, and I've noticed this a lot lately from John, is listening to a lot of music that has a positive connotation to it, or listening to actual subliminal messages or motivational speeches. I'm a big fan of all of these. I even do binaural beats just for the heck of it, see if it works. It seems like it does, so I'm going to keep doing it. But the main point is, everything that I do, I make sure that I always have positivity around me. Everybody that's around me, I will stop people mid-track, mid-sentence, and say, no, listen, I need positivity. I will assert myself, because it's important that you maintain that positive mindset. And we all go through our slumps, and we need to be picked up, and we need to let people know that. Listen, in the entrepreneurial game, one of the biggest issues that people don't talk about is actually being an entrepreneur and dealing with depression. Just don't lose hope. Keep crawling. And it's easier said than done, and I understand it, but keep crawling forward, and that's very critical, that you always have at least a little bit of hope, and you can keep moving forward one baby step at a time if you have to. Just keep that hope alive.
Why we're on this topic, I think a lot of people, and this is something I want to talk about, and I want to kind of jump in here while we have these few minutes with y'all, is this is one of the most depressing fields you can be in. With that on the line, people get sidetracked about the dollar signs and the productivity. If you're meant to be great in the market, you will push past that. That's why a lot of even famous entrepreneurs to entrepreneurs just starting off, they always say focus on the end goal, project yourself out, tell your own future. You were talking about this the other day when you were going to look at houses. Remember, you were talking about going here and you were projecting it out. What is that
Law of attraction and manifesting.
And that is important. I mean, I don't know the physical ramifications of the theory, but it's a great theory. If you see yourself somewhere, put yourself there, work your ass off to get there, grind day in and day out. This goes back to the first episode, and we're going to keep repeating it. It's all about how much you want it, how thirsty, how hungry are you for it. And then don't lose sight of that, because if that's the only thing you can live, breathe, and sleep for, then that means that's your goal and that's your mind mentality. If it's to stop world hunger, go for it. If it is to be a psychiatrist and help some kid out that's been going through some mental issues, do that. If your goal is to be a police officer, protect and serve, I think entrepreneurship and the grind of entrepreneurship goes beyond just starting a company. It goes for reaching out for your goals. There's people that make millions of dollars that are just unhappy. When I'm telling you, I know people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars can buy houses over and over again, and can buy cars over and over again, and they're just not happy because they're missing that one thing that sparks them, and they don't have any motivation for anything. Stick close to what you know. Fall back on your knowledge and understand you are not stupid. You have motivation. You have the grit and the grind that no one else is willing to put out here. You're listening to these tapes. You're listening to this audio. You're understanding and the market that you're going into, and you're doing your research. When you are armed with knowledge, when you are armed with a hunger that no one else has, who can stop you? Who's the one to dictate? Sexual orientation, race, creed, rhyme, or reason doesn't matter. If you're meant to do something great, you're meant to do something great. I have so many people tell me, oh, because I'm African American, I'm gonna fail, or oh, because I'm transgender, I'm gonna fail, or because I'm gay. Look, I know people inside of each one of these communities that have been successful. This should not stop you from anything you want to do, even if that's making 50 to 100K a year. Whatever you're doing. I've had the same friend sit at McDonald's for 5 years and complain about being a cashier, and he wants to be supervisor, but he hasn't done anything to be supervisor, and I've taken him to work and he's 3 times late, and I have my own car, and he's looking at me asking me, well, you keep your head so positive, I don't know how I did it. Dude, how can you talk about being a supervisor when I know they should have fired your ass a long time ago? Worry about your motivation and stick to that, and then move forward.
Well, I mean, there's things in life that can cause little hiccups in the road, and we got to remember that the shit does happen, but you can't use it as an excuse or a crutch to lean on. And we've got to maintain hope and understand exactly what you're saying. We've got to have faith in ourselves first to be able to have hope that there's more at the end of the tunnel. There's actually light at the end of the tunnel for us. And a lot of people forget that, and it takes sometimes communicating with somebody like myself or you and sending us a message. Feel free to reach out anytime. Anybody in this world that's the entrepreneurial world that has any type of depression that you're dealing with, or doubt, self-doubt, anything, reach out. I'll give you a little bit of hope. Just all I ask is you pay it forward to somebody else out there when you start seeing the success working for you. Hope is a huge thing. Now, aside from hope, the next thing after keeping yourself moving forward is understanding that those hiccups we have. Some people call it failures. I've always approached it as failure doesn't exist. To me, failure is not an option, so it doesn't exist. That's more of an end result would be failure, but hiccups happen, and issues arise, and sometimes things aren't complete the way you want it to be completed. But for me, when those happen, I get super excited, because guess what? That means to me I'm one step closer to actually completing my goal.
Well,
one step closer. It may not be what I thought it was, but I've got to be fluid and understand, accept, and acknowledge that hiccup that came about.
You bring a great idea up. Thomas Edison said he found when they interviewed him when he was inventing the light bulb, he said, I found 1,000 ways not to make one. I just need to find the correct way. With that with that information, and someone way back then could say something like that, we can look at our nowadays situation and say, look, I have found 1,000 ways not to do something, but it only takes one. And Les Brown, if you look at any of his motivational speeches, big fan of his. He said that his son kept playing him in this game of chess 24/7, and he said he kept beating his son, but his son didn't give up. And then said that one time his son won, he was more happier than anybody else. And then he looked at his son and said, why are you so happy about that? And he goes, all I needed was that one time to beat you, was the one time to push myself. Now, this is where I'm going, is you have to put the work in on the weekends. You have to put the work in at night. You're working 16-hour days to make this happen. Hell, I have been there, and I'm still there, and I'm pulling myself out of so many bad situations. But we can't lose light at the end of the tunnel. And me and Adam have two different ways of looking at it. I do see things as failures, but we can also put other things next to the failures. We have to learn from our situations and grow stronger. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. Adam knows I'm gay, and a lot of people told me because I was gay I was never gonna make it in the military. Look, I made it, and they told me, oh, you're not gonna be able to make money and grow your own company. I had a company with 10 people, even though they were contracted out, and I had 2 other business owners that were success. And then I moved to Virginia, and then things went awry there, but I leaned on my knowledge and I leaned on my own understanding. Fuck the Bible phrase. Lean on your own understanding. Think of what you have to do to get out of the situation, and work and work and work and work. And work doesn't just imply, oh, I should just work blindly. No, that means work smart and work hard, and something will happen. It's just that easy.
Well, and you can work blindly, and you may make some progress. It does happen, and you can hit the lottery. Some people do. So I'd rather see somebody work and not even necessarily working smart, but more working hard. Because if you're working really hard, it's just like any other athlete out there. You may not be the most pristine technically speaking, but you might be able to come out and here's a great example. I'm an MMA guy, and part of my entrepreneurial endeavors, for those of you who don't know, is I actually have a podcast, and we're starting to get quite a bit of traction because my co-host, or actually the host of the show, Colin, knows quite a bit. But when it comes to MMA fighters, there's two brothers that are very, very well known in the MMA community, the Diaz brothers. They're both known for being very unorthodox. Now, they've trained very, very hard, and because of that training in jiu-jitsu, black belts, very good ground game. These guys know what they're doing, but are they technically sound? 90% of the time when they actually apply stuff, when they're doing it, it's not necessarily they're not the smartest workers on the face of the earth, and you can tell the way they practice. Sometimes it's very unorthodox. The way they approach fighting in general is very unorthodox, but they have excelled and they've succeeded because they are working harder than anybody else. And these guys have pulled themselves out from really shit situations where they were, gangbangers and doing stuff on the streets. And if you really want to look entrepreneurs, I'm going to tell you this. If you're looking for some sort of inspiration and you don't have it, go to the fight community. Check these guys out. These guys are working their tails off, coming from absolutely nothing 90% of the time, starting and going with very little pay for years on end, and finding loss after loss after loss, and then they finally start succeeding because they're working hard. And yes, a lot of them, a majority of them, will work smart, which helps bring them along, like you're saying. But that working hard is more than relevant to the entirety of the situation.
I think a lot of when I say work hard and smart is I believe in working hard, like beyond belief. But when it comes to the smart side, there's a lot of smart, dumb people. When I say that is there's a lot of smart people that take their talent for granted. And then there's people that work and grind to learn everything they know. There's, going back to the fighting scene, these guys, they may not know much about fighting and push themselves and push themselves and push themselves. There's so many fighters, I can't even go down the list of people that didn't know a lot of moves, but you had to learn. But a lot of people, it comes to them naturally and they sleep on their talents. So going back again, understanding the situation that you come from and building yourself up from that. When I say work smarter, I'm talking about learn from the situation that you're in. Lean on your diversity. Lean on the situation and understand it. Read it just like you read a book. Is understand what the outcome was and then what not to do. And then learn from other people's situations. If someone says, hey, let me tell you what I went through so you won't have to make the same mistake as I did. The last business move I made, it was me and Adam, and we had another person we were working with, and they didn't listen to what Adam was saying. And look now, we missed a couple $1 million contracts because of it, and stuff like that happens. But we have to move past that, and I had to take it as a learning experience. Adam was like, dude, it's going to be hard on you, and I was like, yes, I understand. But it was that idea that I had to have someone, even though I preach this stuff, sometimes I fall short on my own understandings, and I have to lean on my friends to tell me, hey, look, that was a situation that you couldn't fix, but you learned from the situation. Now you know not to trust people like that. So with that, going back to that situation, Adam pulled me out of that. And then I have to understand, look, there are times as an entrepreneur that I have thought of suicide more than once. Trust me, when I've been damn near close to homeless. And this goes to another conversation me and Adam had the other day. Homeless people are some of the hardest working individuals I have ever met. There's this idea out there that homeless people are drug users and they don't think about anything and they're just there for their fix. I'm sorry, you know how hard it is to get drugs when you're homeless? I mean, it can be difficult for them. There's a lot of people with mental illnesses and a lot of drug issues definitely are feeding into the homelessness. But I'm saying that the drug issue is not the thing though. But I've seen more homeless people take care of each other, put more work ethic, and these are the kind of people I want to hire. Someone that works all day long, and I can pay a good salary to. Those are the kind of people. When you want to see something in life, experience cultures outside of your own to get a better understanding on where you want to be.
Yeah, well, and yeah, when you're talking about that, I sit here and think of homelessness and the reality. Listen, I've been there, and you are constantly trying to find a place to sleep, constantly trying to find a place to eat, and you've got to figure everything out. You're working so hard just to stay alive that you don't really have time to go out and look for a job. You don't really have time to go out and do the things everybody says, just go get a job. So it's very difficult being a homeless person in that sense, and I empathize quite a bit, being that I have been there, but I found a way to pull myself out. And I think kind of what John's getting at in general, aside from the fact that there's are some very hard workers, is it doesn't matter what situation you find yourself in, accept the reality that things have not necessarily worked out. Reflect on why things have not worked out.
Well,
and utilize that to be able to push forward and move forward. So accept and acknowledge your failures or mistakes.
Let me ask you this on a personal note. Do you ever lean on your own understanding from being homeless?
All the time. I'll sit there and I use it for keeping myself grounded. I use it for going back and looking at my mistakes that I made, which one of the big ones, I agree with Damon John. He brought this up recently, is people are quitting their jobs too soon. And I did that. So I look back and I think I shouldn't have quit my 9-to-5 job that had nothing to do with any of my entrepreneurial endeavors, but I put too much on the line and I jumped too soon. Now I look back and it's like, man, I should have kept going. And I've actually made that same mistake a couple times because I wasn't thinking about it. But then when I look back in retrospect, it's like, man, why did I do that? Why did I quit my job too soon?
I feel in this entrepreneur game, you there's one or two ways you learn. You jump in balls deep, or you take it a little bit at a time. So I'm one of those people. I learn the hard way, and God, that's why I say learn from failure. If you have fallen so many times, there's so many entrepreneurs that are big and famous now that have failed so many times. Jeff Bezos will tell you there's many times that the stock share of Amazon went down when it first started off, and he says he told his people, don't look at shares when we were 32 up as we're 32% smarter. He said, no, we're going to work on the goal and the dream towards the end, and we're going to build a bridge to get there. And that's some of the things that I like about entrepreneurship. It's one of those things that keep me grounded as an individual. It teaches you the basic survival instincts that most humans should have.
Well, and another thing you start learning, and this is a major point I think with entrepreneurship that a lot of people miss. They want to go out and start, they fall into network marketing schemes or something because they're just looking for the money. They're just looking for different opportunities that are already existing. Sometimes they just look for more or less franchise opportunities. And when you look at the franchise opportunities, I'm not saying they're bad, they're great, but a lot of people will look at those and say, well, that's my only way to wealth, is going ahead and purchasing a business from somebody else that's already established a plan. And listen, this is the reality. If you really want to excel as an entrepreneur, and this is something I've learned firsthand after so many years of not doing this and really chasing the dream of the standard or more traditional routes, maybe not the traditional path, but the traditional end game is what I was looking for. It wasn't until I started looking at all the availabilities of options that didn't exist yet. And when I say that's kind of confusing, because something doesn't exist. I have to envision what's going to happen. Where is the market that I can attach to that's a growing market that nobody's really heard about, nobody's really done anything with? And I saw tons of opportunities arise, first off, in one major area when there was a market just booming, and that was Bitcoin. And now I'm actually doing something in an industry that nobody actually really knows anything about, except
there's
for
a lot of people scoffing at it right now.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, and now there's I would say 5-10 of us doing what we're specifically doing right now, and I can't disclose too much details, but I can tell you the opportunities that I have right now. I'm speaking with top bankers, I'm speaking with top investors, I'm speaking with top tech people and software engineers across the globe. I have friends that I could have never imagined that I'd have, billionaire hedge fund managers. I have friends that I could have never imagined, and it's because I reached out into an area and discovered a market, more or less, with a handful of other people that were there in an early stage. And you got to understand, this is what you've got to do as an entrepreneur, is learn from your mistakes and realize that even if you're working on, let's say, a t-shirt of some sort, is it what is it that sets you apart, that makes it a new market? That is what's going to make you succeed and excel as an entrepreneur, not just setting up something that everybody else is doing. How can you actually solve a problem that nobody else is solving? What's the solution that you're providing? So think about that with the acceptance side of things.
You reminded me of Tom's shoes. You remember those?
Yeah, I do.
Tom's
actually.
shoes. For every pair that's bought, there's a kid in Kenya somewhere getting a pair. So that's awesome. I think a lot of people, when they go out to like market themselves, buy my t-shirt, buy my t-shirt, buy my, what makes your t-shirt different? You have to remember there is Nike, Adidas, and everything else that's already in the t-shirt market, and everybody else sells t-shirts. What makes you and your boutique shop different from everybody else? And what's going to make your boutique a franchise, or what is going to make your marketing pop? I'm not downing it. What I'm saying is you have to do some serious homework and educate yourself about the criteria that you're jumping into, and then push your product with a good strategy. Like,
And here's one thing I kind of want to make the point. It's not just that one strategy, but if you are looking to be one of the super successful, like hyper successful entrepreneurs and businessmen out there, I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is something I've had to learn the hard way, because I always wanted to be this big business mogul. I just wanted to have a bunch of businesses. I'm not going to be remembered for that. But what I will be remembered for, and I know this, is the struggles that I've been through, my ability to overcome, how you know, the journey is not for the weak stomach people.
I'm the first one in line to buy that book.
And at the end of the day, too, what's going to happen with everything that I've fought for, I'm going to make it somewhere very specifically because of what I just told you, this little piece of advice, and it's something that I know matters. If you want to be a hyper business professional that's at the top of the top, you know, there's the CEOs that own 4 or 5 companies, and then you got the CEO that owns a unicorn that's worth, you know, a few $1 billion or even more, a few $100 billion,
and
just
then
like
you have
Amazon.
Mark Cuban that owns like 150 businesses.
So with that, what it is it is focus on an industry that does not necessarily exist now. And you look at these guys like Jeff Bezos, who looks at all of the industries, every single industry that he can think of that does not exist yet, and how does he make it happen? Zuckerberg does the same thing in Facebook. He envisions, he creates this idea in his head, and he puts it out there, and people will call it crazy half the time before it's actually created. You've got to do the same thing if you want to be one of the hyper successful. There's no way you can do it without, if you just use traditional business models, that's great. That's fine, but the one thing that stands out from everybody else is coming up and working on creating a new industry, and that's where people get confused sometimes. I mean, even Damon John did it with Fubu. He created an entirely new market. I mean, that's all there is. You can say branding all day.
To, you know, people used to say the Earth was flat, and then we found out it was round, and people were laughing at people that thought the Earth was round at one point until the scientific evidence backed them up and then said, "Look, the Earth is round." So, and getting off that tangent is when you feel it in your bones that something is different and that you're going to push past. And I hate entrepreneurs that say business is not about emotion and feeling. It's a lot about emotion and feeling. Now, do I think you should get married to every product that you throw out there? No. But what I'm saying is, when you meet an investor, a lot of investors want to shake your hand and see what kind of person you are before they invest, because they want to make sure their money is taken care of. That's understandable. The same thing why me and Adam click, because this friendship at some point has to blossom, and it may go past business, and it may go past, you know, golfing, may go past taking care of the kids, like best friend shit. Like, but when it comes down to it, you have to focus on that end goal and see where you want to be in life and project yourself. That goes to if you want to have a nice house with a family. That goes to you want to leave a legacy behind. Look, Bill Gates has literally made millions over and over and over, and him and his wife opened up this charitable organization, and now they're in the middle of Africa trying to clear malaria off the board and kill polio off. Like, this is some big level shit. And I know I'm cussing a lot in this podcast, but if your end goal is to cure mental illness, or, you know, take care of homeless people, or make sure every kid in America is housed in some way, shape, or form, and I know that's back to homeless, but if your end goal is that, what are you going to do to get there? And for me, a lot of these goals are not tangible. They're not going to fall apart unless someone else does them. Like, finding and projecting your market and where you want to be is the same way. And going into your goals, you're going to fail. And that goes back to step one and step two. You're going to fail, but you got to center yourself and work your way back up. I do this on a daily process. And sometimes I go to the gym. Like the other day, I was sitting here and I was like, I'm always going to be chubby. I'm never going to lose weight. And I'm sitting here and I go to the gym and the scale says 175 out of the 200 pounds. Sorry, out of the 200 pounds where I was at. So I'm like, I've lost almost 25 pounds, roughly, to where I was, and I'm happy. And that's 2 months. That's putting in the work. I don't know how many times I've been to the gym. Almost every time you see me, I'm walking in or walking out from the gym, right?
At least once a day.
Yeah, well, I've been going twice. You haven't seen me in the early mornings. I'm like a ghost. So, but waking up at 6 o'clock has changed my mindset and has given me more hours of the day to work at. And sometimes I wake up at 8 because I'm just not feeling it. At the same token, I'm still waking up and pushing myself because I know there's something more than just falling asleep and eating and falling asleep and eating and doing the same thing over and over. At the end of the day, we're all going to be in a box.
Right.
And how we get to that box will dictate how people remember us.
Right, and I think it's important to realize that, you brought up the end goal and having that vision, that focus, kind of like we've been talking about. It's a F that we've been talking about, F for focus. You got to understand that end goal may not be reached the way you think it will, and that's why the acceptance and acknowledgement of your mistakes and failures is really important, because part of your process, and I know it hurts for some of you to hear, you may not be successful unless you go ahead and find or create a new market. But the reality is that's part of the process, and it may not directly be the solution to your end, to get you to the end game. And you need to understand that you need to be fluid and accepting that your idea that you came up with originally may not be the right route to get there, but you'll learn that. We all come into these forks in the road. We all come into these huge roadblocks right in front of us, and we have to either find a way to tear it down or go around it. And sometimes you really have to go a completely different route to be able to go all the ways around the globe the whole other way, because you were just about there. But then there's a huge wall that's surrounding it all the ways to a very specific route, 360 degrees. You got to go around the globe, the entirety of it.
Sometimes you can't
that's the way it works.
You can't take a sledgehammer to that wall.
Exactly. So what you do is you reroute. You do something different. It's like, for me, I want to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker, but for me to really start excelling, I need to come up with financiers or actors. I actually already have financiers and I already have actors, but you know what the issue that I have is both of them are sitting here saying, well, you need to have the amount in the account and ready to be released today for us to sign on as an actor, or the actors or the bank is saying you need to have them sign on and ready to go. Now, we've got the handshake deals. We've sat down, hung out with these people. We even have contingency contracts, but they're wedged there, and there's this like block that we cannot do. So what do? I have to go out and create a new funding route for casting, very specific for casting and not for the film project. So that's something I'm working on. Well, then people don't want to fund it because it's a new thing. So what am I doing? I'm going out and I land into Bitcoin and technology and find a way there that, the markets start rising, about to make some money, and all of a sudden it's about to crash. It doesn't work anymore. I just lost a bunch of money instead of gaining a bunch like I thought I would. And I broke even. There's a little bit there. Oh, how do I make a little bit of money now? Oh, I arbitrage it. Okay, so now, there's an opportunity. I'm able to go between exchanges. I can start talking to other people. So anyways, there's a business idea that came about from that. And now I'm consulting to larger people in institutions and figuring it out. So then this income is going to be coming through, or is coming through, and I'm able to fund that project that I was looking for the films. I can pay for the casting to come on and have the rest of the funding released.
So let's jump into hypotheticals real quick. If everything else fails right now, let's say you lose all the Bitcoin, and like this is like an asteroid hit the Earth, right? And everything just fell. What would you think you would still rise to the occasion?
Absolutely. There's no reason I wouldn't, because if that doesn't work out, I'm telling you that it opened my eyes and made me realize that what I've got to do very specifically, no matter what happens, is to go ahead and attack the markets that are new. And that doesn't mean that, like, I can still do something in film, but I've got to find a way to solve a problem that has not already been solved. And I'm doing that one step at a time. So as I'm doing that, I'm able to build and develop and create. And listen, there's things that have fallen apart so many times for me. It really doesn't matter. But what does matter is I've picked myself up every time, and I do feel myself getting closer. I know I'm so close to being able to leave a mark and leave a dent. And you know things that I can't disclose it on air here, but you know that I have things that are going on. I'm going to leave a mark. I mean, people are going to be like, whoa, shit.
That's a big pickaxe.
That's it. I'm about to drop an atom bomb, and a lot of people, they don't know what's coming on, but I literally am dropping an ADAM bomb. And it's going to really let people know what's going on, but that's not even what it's about. It's about me trying to find a resolution to a problem, and I keep doing it, and I keep doing it. And even if the stuff that I have on the table right now does not pan out, there's still something on the edge about to come together, and it's because I'm consistently focusing on that end goal.
You're
and how do I find that
savagely
solution.
going after it.
Absolutely. I've got focus on the end goal, and part of that is creating a resolution for homelessness, not just for me, but for or just one program, but generally, getting people inspired to go ahead and help out the homeless, getting people inspired to motivate others, to be able to motivate themselves, and to create programs that really are centered around it. It's very close to home for me because I have been homeless twice.
It's been close to me too, because I've been close to homeless even though I haven't been homeless. But it comes down to what you're willing to sacrifice to get to the end goal, and make sure that you are pushing yourself harder than you ever do. Because sometimes there's days I go into the gym and I feel like I just haven't pushed myself, and I know that I'm lifting more weight than I did the day before, but I feel like I could have maybe I should have threw that 5 to 10 pounds more on there. It wasn't much. I could have pushed, right? And I think, and that's one of the things we get caught in our own traps, is like there's days that I know I've produced some good content and I feel like I could have done more, and I feel like I could have done more, and I feel like I could have done more. Literally, there has been people after watching these podcasts ask me like 4 or 5 questions about entrepreneurship, and at first I didn't think this podcast was reaching anybody, and I was like, it's something I do and I like it, but is it really reaching anybody? And then I get 50 downloads per episode in the Google Play Store and the iTunes Store, and I'm sitting here and I'm giving this away for free, because to me, I just generally want to help people, and that's where I'm at in this game. And I understand I want to give back, and I can understand what leads people to different motivations for helping the homeless, and curing cancer, and curing HIV, and curing all types of problems in this world. This world is horrible, horrible, horrible. And the only thing that's going to make this place better is us as humans banding together and actually coming up with some inventive ideas to fix shit. That's why I believe in entrepreneurship, why I do believe in capitalism, because there's people like Mark Zuckerberg, there's people like freaking Mark Cuban that have created millions of jobs. And yeah, they get cracked down on it because they feel like the company has done something wrong, but at the same time, he's giving to the president's bottom line of how much jobs have been grown because entrepreneurship. And I understand people wanting to attack the 1% and the money's all at the 1%, but at the same time, entrepreneurship has never been the issue. What's been the issue is, when are you going to focus on your goals? And I'm liberal in a lot of ways, I think, but when are we actually going to take responsibility for what we've done and learn about our responsibility and see what we've done wrong and lean on our understanding and then get ourselves out of a bad situation? A lot of people sit here and want to blame people, and I'm not talking about homeless people. I'm talking about, I know people that make a lot of money and they feel like their wife did them wrong and they're 3 divorces and they just want to take it out on everybody. Why are you so mad at the world? you've been through 3 wives. Like, lean on your own understanding. Look back and judge
Well, I don't want to
yourself.
dismiss. I want to be careful when we're saying this.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want to
yeah.
dismiss issues that people have had in their lives.
And I'm not
there are
trying
people
to,
that do wrong,
but I'm
but
saying-
you've got to accept it. You've got to accept that you may not have handled that situation the way you could have or should have. And it just is what it was.
I guess at the end of the day,
sometimes it's not even your own fault.
Don't complain about the situation. Look at the positive side of things. Maybe that person wasn't in your life because you didn't need them to be. Maybe that situation happened because you needed to grow, and it may not have been your fault. There's a lot of things that has not been my fault in this world, and there's been a lot of things that are my fault in this world that have caused devastation in my own life. So with that information and looking back at what I've said, things happen. At the end of the day, I can cry about it and whine about it, or I can pick myself up. There's one or two things: that you're going to fight or you're going to flight. You're going to leave the situation and completely abandon the world, or you're going to try to work your way through it. And like Adam said, you may have to go around the world and hit a brick and then go right back around the other way to figure things out. But whatever it takes, don't lose that focus.
Right, yeah. Don't lose that focus. And I think this one of the things you said is just really ringing a bell for me and striking a chord in a good way. So there's issues that we run across all the time, and it may not be our fault. It may be our fault, but we want to put the blame on somebody else. And there are ways that we can go ahead and blame other people for something falling apart and maybe even be right. But it is very critical as entrepreneurs to have this little thing called empathy, and you've got to understand people and where they were. And exactly like John said, at the end of the day, it could be a blessing that that person's not in your life, not necessarily because they're wrong for anybody or any situation, but because you and them are not meant to be on the same page for whatever reason it is, and you just get over it. You realize, well, you know what? I'm just not meant to know you. And no offense, but part of understanding that is actually not having a lack of empathy, but actually having it, because you've got to understand where they're coming from. They have their own journey. Their journey is their own. You have your own, and sometimes they don't match up with other people's. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn probably a year and a half ago with somebody that I was dating. We had it really difficult. It actually got really toxic, and it was mostly probably because of me. But at the end of the day, it's because our journeys and our paths were just so different. We could not get along. We could not find a way to make things work. But it took empathy for me to understand that, and it was a long process. And my ego was in the way. And you got to understand, as an entrepreneur, your ego is important, but you got to also learn how to drop it.
Oh, and okay, so you hit a chord on me, because you hit a chord on me. And today I was supposed to go to a certain premiere of a certain movie. I'm not going to mention things. And guy was like, hey, I want you to show up here. You can talk to my podcasting team. And we're on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, and Google Play here. And we've pushed that, and we pushed that instance really strong. And this guy was like, well, we're doing a podcast for our studio, and I would like you to come out here, speak to him. Maybe we can strike a deal, all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, next Sunday we'll do it, whatever. And I knew it was going to be right after the Savage podcast. I was like, right when I get done with Savage, I'll make sure I go ahead and get dressed and I'll go out. I asked the dude, okay, well, you said you wanted me to come to the after party, we can talk, and nothing. Haven't got a message back. Mentioned him today. I was like, hey, do you want me to go to this premiere? He's like, yeah. And then said, oh, I don't know, this and this. And I was like, okay. And then I left a question mark because he never replied. At first I was getting upset, and then I started thinking, you know what? I'm just going to put it in my memory bank. I'm going to leave it alone, because maybe something's going on, maybe something's happening. But if it's not meant to be, then clearly it's not meant to be. And when this guy wants to come back and talk to me, then I'll leave it alone and talk about the situation. But there's no reason for me to cry over spilled milk. You know what? I got a week of video content that I got to get to editing anyway. So I keep myself busy and make sure I put my blinders on. When I say blinders, to blind myself from situations like that, and saying, leave it alone, move on. Because you don't need to pick a fight over it. And it could be something that happened on his end. It could be something that happened on my end. But a lot of people break break their promises. A lot of people break their words. A lot of people, even people said, hey, I'll be there for you, you know?
Well, and that's a tough one to understand. You know, we all lean on the idea of loyalty or integrity and the follow through of other people, and you've got to understand the most important thing is your follow through is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And if somebody else is unable to follow through with a situation, things may have changed between the first time they said something and
the last time they said something.
And the last time they said something. So you've got to understand that, and it may be irritating as all hell. I've been let down so many times, and I've been so pissed off and frustrated, but I had to keep focus on the end game and also drop my ego, have a little bit of understanding, and accept that the situation changed and I got a little bit of a curve. So by keeping focus on the end game, I was still able to crawl forward.
Isn't that awesome that all three of these steps just played an effect in like 5 seconds that we talked about that?
Exactly.
Is going back to the beginning. You have to find your own centerpiece. You have to find your gravity and whatever's going to keep your feet on the ground. And before we end this, and I'm getting close to the time we are, understand you are the only one at the end of the day that is looking at the mirror at yourself. You are stuck in your skin, and you see your fingers and your toes when you wake up, and you see your eyeballs when you're looking back at your phone and taking a selfie and posting on Instagram. This world belongs to you if you want to dominate it or not.
Absolutely. Well, I want to go ahead and give everybody a shout out and a thank you for tuning in. If you're live with us, awesome. Anytime, guys, leave us a note, drop us a note on the comments below. Go ahead, give us a like, give us a share. We could use your help in getting the word out. I'm going to thank you preemptively for that. And make sure to like our page if you have not already. It is just Savage the Podcast, or the Savage Podcast in the search bar. On Facebook, you'll be able to find it. Now we're also available on which other places right now?
We're on iTunes, Google Play, iHeart, and Spotify, and we're fixing to come on some more areas. And one last thing before we go, we do read our comments after we get done with the Savage Podcast, and part of these 3 topics that came up today was because we were listening to your comments and because we took into consideration what y'all have to say, because that's very important to anything like this, getting that feedback and building topics for the future weeks. So thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you later.